Hi everyone, welcome to Essential Oil Truths. My name is Stacey Haluka and I'm your host today. And I have a very special guest, Pageau, with me today, who is a certified aromatherapist as well as an aromatherapist with animals. So today we're going to be talking about essential oil safety with animals and what is good for them, what is not good for them, what should you be doing, what should you not be doing, because animals have such different systems than we have. And we are also inundating our animals with too many chemicals, too many perfumes, essential oils, and so on. So thank you, Anna, for joining us today, all the way from Nevada.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm
Oh,
glad to be here and share some of my wisdom.
yes, and you have a lot of wisdom. I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic today because that is always one of my that's where my heart is, with the animals and with the children and the
Hmm.
essential usage for them and how toxic it can be and dangerous it can be for them. So I'm so excited to share your knowledge and wisdom with people and, just help them understand what they should or should not be doing with the animals. So
Okay.
again, thank you for joining us. I would like to let's start out by something that most people do that don't think of what they're doing is diffusing essential oils in their home with their animals present and using them in a lot of their cleaning products and their floor washes and that sort of thing. So can you, Anna, just go into that a little bit about what is good about that, what is not good about that? And most people have cats and dogs in their houses, but there's also birds, there's ferrets, there's geckos and rabbits, and there's so many other animals that could be within the house. So can we touch on that a little bit, Anna?
Right. Absolutely. So, what I actually did a talk not long ago in one of the Facebook groups about what was going to happen because all of a sudden we were at home when everything went haywire back in March.
Yeah.
And, and something that a lot of people don't think about when, all of a sudden we were at home and we were either diffusing all the time or even just burning candles
Mm.
and all of that stuff that you're putting in the air that your animals aren't used to because you weren't home before and you weren't doing that all the time before. So, it's definitely something that our animals weren't used to. And then now you're introducing them something that, yeah, you may enjoy having your diffuser running and you're thinking that you're using maybe a citrus oil or something like that. No, it can't be that bad. But if you think about it, sorry, I have to just look at my notes to make sure I say it right. Um, a dog's olfactory system has 300 million scent receptors compared to humans that is 6 million.
Wow.
So, if you think about that, the what they're taking in and what they're smelling is just so much more intense
Mm.
than what we're dealing with. So, it's definitely something that you have to just think about when you're dealing with your dogs or your cats or birds, ferrets, whatever, guinea pigs. They're scent receptors because that's how they communicate
Right.
is through their scent. So they need to be able to smell more. So if you're diffusing all the time, you're actually damaging that in a way because then their system is overloaded with those diffused scents and they can't then maybe sense danger or something like that. And
Mm.
if you think about it, how many times have you heard stories about a dog that's woken an owner up because of a fire or
Mm.
something? So if you diffuse too much and they can't smell that fire, then they can't help you. So
That's very interesting. I never thought about it from that aspect.
yeah. And then the other thing that I always think about, because, with birds, is
Mm.
how did the miners detect dangerous chemicals in a mine? They used birds. So, as sad as it is to think about the poor bird going down into a mine and dying because of a scent that we can't smell, you know, that's kind of how I think about it with birds is that you're inundating them with things that and I know some of the stuff that we've talked about in our group and all of that kind of stuff is just the amount of chemistry that's in the essential oils. And there's so many things that with our 6 million scent receptors, we can't detect all of that, but animals can. So, it's definitely one of those things that a lot of people don't necessarily think about.
Absolutely. Just to top on, you just said in our group, I just want to say our group is called The Unspoken Truth About Essential Oils. It's a private group for safety information. So, a lot of people who want to learn about safety with essential oils, a lot of people who have been injured with essential oils, and so on, are members of this group. And there's almost 9,000 members at this
Hmm.
point. A lot of really good information in there. So, I'll put the link to that below this video as well. And so if people want to join that, there's a lot of good support and information in there.
Yep.
So with, is there a danger to the animal's body from constant inhalation of the essential oils?
I think it's one of those things that, going back to when I used to, before I moved to Nevada, I volunteered at a rescue farm. And you can definitely use diffusion to help animals, but you don't want to do it for a long amount of time. Just like with humans, with humans, you recommend, 30 minutes on, 60 minutes off, or, something like that. With an animal, because they have such heightened sense receptors, you could probably do 10 or 15 minutes on and an hour off, because they're going to get the benefit in that short amount of time. But if you do it for too long, yeah, you're definitely going to be causing them issues, just because it's too much and it inundates their system. But so the reason I mentioned the farm is because we dealt with a lot of animals. It was a rescue farm, and we dealt with a lot of animals that had emotional trauma from abuse and, being neglected and stuff like that. So I would use diffusion, but really I did the, putting an essential oil on a tissue. I didn't even use like an electric diffuser or anything like that, so that I could just let them sniff it for a couple of minutes, if that. And then I would stop. And, by doing that maybe 2 or 3 times a day for a week, that would help the animal just calm down and realize that a human wasn't necessarily going to be neglecting them or hurting them or anything like that. So just by working with them, but it was very much less than using an electric diffuser. So I think that's really important to realize, that the small amounts can really benefit an animal. They don't need or shouldn't have long-term use of anything.
Right. And there's 2 points I want to make here. Something that I've heard often within the MLM industry is, go ahead and diffuse it. If the animal doesn't like it, they'll leave the room.
And I hear that too. And, I, I think I'm one of those odd aromatherapists. I mean, I know that there's some people out there that never went towards MLMs, but they've been in the industry for a really long time.
Mhm.
And I guess I was fortunate that I never went into never got invited to a party or anything like that. So I never got introduced to a lot of the things that I learned about by reading your book, and, and the things I've learned about by listening to other people where they got all of this training. And I never had any of that. So I was fortunate that I
Yes.
had training outside of that. And I actually got a lot of eye-opening listening to other people's stories about what they were being told. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just, it, I feel fortunate that I learned to not ever do anything the wrong way, so I didn't have to unlearn it,
Right.
I guess.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so yeah, with animals, it's definitely a very different thing, just because their systems are different than ours. I mean, that's why you have vets and you have doctors, because a vet is going to learn something very different than a human doctor. So, and I will say that going through everything that I did training wise, because my training to become an animal aromatherapist was just, the initial portion of it was like 300 hours, and I had to do, um I think through the school that I went to, we had to do 12 case studies.
Mhm.
And it had to be, I mean, she said that she was okay if we worked with the same animal, because sometimes it's hard to find 12 animals.
Right.
But, it had to be very different issues. So it couldn't be that I was working on the same reoccurring issue or whatever. So, I had to work with very different issues as I was going through my training, just so that I could learn the different physiology. And then the other advantage that I had was that I didn't work with just dogs and cats, which, most people, when they have pets,
Mhm.
that's what they think about. But I was working with dogs and cats and goats and horses and rabbits, and what else did I work on? A duck one time. And, so I was fortunate and it forced me to do a lot of research into, okay, I'm working with a duck. What is their system like? What can I really
Right.
do? Oh, they have hollow bones, this kind of stuff. And that's something that a lot of people, I would imagine, in the MLM world are just going to go, oh, this says I can do this, and they're just going to do it and not really think about all the details that the animal has that are different than ours. Or like a rabbit is another really good example.
Mhm.
They're so small, and you can kind of compare it to a small dog as well, that they're so small that their systems are going to get overloaded even with one drop of essential oil. So why do you want to do that?
Mhm.
And to go to the opposite side, you don't want to use twice as many drops just because a horse is, you know, several hundred pounds or whatever, or a donkey. I had a donkey that was my favorite.
Aw.
um, but you can't think that just because they're a large animal or a small animal that they can have more or whatever. You have to think about how their body is going to react to it. And you have to understand their physiology and how they're going to react to it. So I think that's really important.
I think that's very important to understand that animals aren't all the same. Right?
Exactly.
They all have a different physiology, they all have different enzymes, they all react differently to certain things. And like you said, especially the horses, people
Yeah.
assume because they're so big, well, they can take as much as uh, say an adult, and that's not true. They
Right.
need such a very minute amount, right, to
Yeah.
help them. I remember when I started using essential oils, and I was using them with horses, and I had done some research on that, and I had went to my friend's farm, and I was just letting them sniff and watching their bodies, because I do energy healing and I work with horses as well, right? So I wanted to
Hmm.
incorporate what I was doing and trying with the essential oils. And I was very in tune with them at the time, and really watching their body language of how they were reacting to it. And they let me know which ones they liked and which ones they didn't, just from
Right.
their reaction. And they would literally start smiling and lifting their heads when they really liked it, or they would turn or put their ears down. And so it's really
Hmm.
paying attention to that as well, in what you're using and how your animals are reacting to it is a big
Right.
portion of it too.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I think, especially if you're diffusing all the time,
Hmm.
you're actually paying attention to how your animal's responding. Like,
Right.
do you take the time to notice that? And I think that's one of the fears that I always have when I hear about, oh yeah, I'm diffusing whatever. It's like, are you taking the time to pay attention to everybody in your house, not just how the humans are reacting, but how
Exactly.
all your animals are reacting too. So,
Exactly. There's there's many different ways that animals can react as well. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, lethargic or anxiety, or just the different things that may happen when they're inundated or not
yeah.
enjoying the.
So, you talked about how with the horses, you could
Mhm.
kind of tell that, they would turn their head or whatever if they weren't enjoying a scent. And that's something that, if you're actually paying attention and working with the animal directly, you can see a lot of those things, which is important. And that's something that, if you're going to be using essential oils with an animal, you definitely want to make sure that you're in tune with the animal and you understand their reactions, because you could have, maybe your dog always turns its head. So you need to be able to understand what their body
Mhm.
language is, since they can't talk to us. So, but the things to look for if you're diffusing and you have an animal that all of a sudden is sleeping more than normal, because you're diffusing all the time, you're not going to necessarily notice right away, but you could see that their breathing habits are going to change. Maybe they start whining more, or they're pacing the house a lot and stuff. Those could be things that they're all of a sudden getting bothered by your diffusion or candle burning, or, there's a lot of different scents, that not just essential oils, that can cause some of these things. Maybe they, like, their muscles change, their muscle tone, they're walking slower, so their muscles may be tight or something. You just notice that the way they're walking or something could change, so that muscle change could happen. Or they could have an inability to walk. I know that there's some stories that go around Facebook sometimes about, I think it's a dog, like a small dog, that ended up having toxicity to being around a diffuser all the time, and the dog all of a sudden just couldn't walk at
Right.
all and was having breathing difficulties, and the owner didn't realize what had happened. So those symptoms obviously are dramatic, and you can see that. But things like breathing changes and or body tremors, things like that could be a sign that they're having an issue related to it. And to deal with that, obviously, no scent, take your scent completely out, get a hold of your vet right away, and have them test their liver enzymes, because that's where, just like with us, you got to process all of that. So testing their liver enzymes is the way that you're going to know what exactly it is that they're being affected by. And make sure you tell your vet. I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
something that even with people,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily want to admit that, oh, we were doing this. Just tell your vet you were using essential oils, you were diffusing, you were whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
Now, what are your thoughts on people using it in cleaning products? I know a lot of people make their own cleaning products now with essential oils, and it's all over
yeah,
the house. It's on the floors. It's, right where the dogs or cats are walking or licking or eating food off the floors. What are your thoughts
right.
on that?
And I think, it's definitely one of those things that, if you have to do something like that, where you feel like, oh, I have to keep making my own cleaning product because I feel better about it,
Mhm.
do that. But know what the reactions are going to be in your animal, and do whatever you can to try and rinse as much of that off. Because, like you said, they're going to be walking on it. And then, especially like a cat, I mean, dogs do it too, but especially a cat, because they're constantly cleaning themselves. So think about you clean the floor with your essential oil based blend, and then the cat walks on it, and then they lick the bottom of their paws. So they're going to be essentially ingesting what you've cleaned your floor with. So that's something to think about. Or if you're cleaning a window and your dog jumps at the window and licks at the window because the mailman walked past, they're ingesting what you've just cleaned with. So if you have to do it, rinse. You use a warm water rinse afterwards to try and rinse off any of the stuff that may have gotten left. And then that way you can just ensure that you're thinking about your animal friends.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's why I think this conversation is so important, because we're not thinking about that, right? I myself,
Yeah,
I didn't think about what I was cleaning my floors with. And,
yeah,
even before, when I was diffusing, and I didn't think about that. So it's important to have these conversations so people can understand, like, holy crap, I never thought about that, right? So just to
yeah,
open
yeah,
eyes, raise a bit of awareness in what people are doing, even because we think we're doing really good. Like I always say, that we always think we're doing good, but it could be more harmful, right? Um,
yeah,
so
exactly, exactly.
the other question I have is, how is your response to people giving animals essential oils to ingest,
Mm.
or putting them on them topically?
Okay, so the ingestion one, just like humans, why?
Right.
Why do you need to ingest it? Why does your animal need to ingest it? If you feel like they need the ingestion for some reason, why not turn to an herb? I mean,
Hmm.
you know, if they're having an issue and there is holistic vets out there that can work with you and give you advice as to, give them whatever. And I'll use this as an example because I, my donkey that I worked with, he had a lot of issues. He had suffered from years of neglect. He had a lot of hoof issues and stuff like that. So I learned a lot about a donkey because I had to work with him. I had to help him feel better. And so I did use essential oils topically because he had a lot of issues that we had to deal with muscle issues and all of that kind of stuff. And then I also, but I gave him an herbal supplement to help with his pain. I would never even have thought to give him, because why?
Mm.
Why would I want to do that to him? He doesn't need that. So I turned to herbs because herbs they can be just as effective. They're gentle, an essential oil, it it's it's, even though it's a natural product, it's not fully a natural product because you've taken the water soluble parts out of it. So the essential oil is the oil part of the plant. It's not the water part. The water part goes to the hydrosol. So use the hydrosol. That's kind of, those are some of the things that I've always thought about as I'm working with an animal is I need something that's going to be effective, but I also need it to be gentle. So
Yeah.
what's going to be gentle? A hydrosol is going to be gentle. The herb itself, why break the plant down?
Right.
Use the whole plant. Um, there's other flower essences can
Mm.
be powerful, but they're very gentle. And those are things that I've always turned to with an animal. So like I say, with the donkey is a perfect example of ingestion. I would never have gone there with an essential oil. I turned to an herb because an herb is going to be safer. And then I did use it on him, but it was for a very specific reason, for a very short amount of time. I would not just randomly, okay, I'm going to make a shampoo and use this for them all the time. If I was making a shampoo that was because I had gone on a long hot hike with my dog and I need to make sure that there's no ticks in his long fur, like a golden retriever or something like that, you know, you're using it for that one time. That's okay. But if you're going to be using it every time you give them a bath, why? You're going to inundate their system with a bunch of stuff. Or, oh, I'm going to put it on their fur just so that they smell good. That's one of the things that I hear sometimes. And I'm like, your dog is supposed to smell. One, I mean, they don't always smell pretty. It's a dog. So don't put something on their fur all the time. Yes, if you're using something because you're going again for the long hike, or you're using something because there's a lot of flies around, that was one thing that, and even with flies, when I was working on the farm, we would do things like I would rather infuse a plant material into like vinegar and then use that as a fly spray rather than make a fly spray that had essential oils, which you can do. You just have to make sure that it's properly solubilized and, everything's in there so you're not putting the essential oil on them by itself. So,
And that's another thing that I see a lot of. I keep mentioning on, Pinterest and Facebook and so on, all these memes that people make, and they're just dangerous. I'm just going to say they're flat out dangerous.
yes.
And a lot that I see are about animals and about calming them and their anxiety and stop barking and all these issues, and to make these concoctions to put on their food or to put, spray onto their body every day. Well, they're making the sprays a lot of times diluted with water and so on. It's not even properly done. And then they're using
Right.
them every day.
Yeah. And that's scary. And, I actually, I wrote a blog post on my on my website because I had seen an article where somebody was recommending that they put oregano essential oil in their chicken's water to help
Ugh.
with mites and different things like that. And I was like,
Oh my.
no,
No.
why would you do that? Why not just, so yeah, my blog post is about, don't necessarily do
Oh.
this. How about considering putting oregano in their coop so they can eat the oregano, and that's going to help them, and there's other herbs that are going to help them rather than the essential oil in the water.
Right.
Yeah, that one scared me. I was like, oh no, don't put essential oil in the water so that it helps with, I can't even remember what it was that they were like trying to, I think it was mites or something like that. But, oregano essential oil, if you look at Tisserand's safety
Oh,
book, you shouldn't use it over 1.1% safety wise because it's such a caustic, I guess is a good word to use. It's a very hot oil. So, ugh, yeah, that one scared me.
yeah, they all scare me, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you would like to add right now, Anna? Some great tips for our viewers of something to leave them with?
I think the biggest thing is just if you want to use your essential oils, just think about how it's going to affect everybody around you. And that goes for animals and humans. I mean, everybody wears perfume. Well, maybe not everybody. I don't. But, people like to wear pure perfume because they want to smell good. But just think about how that's going to impact the people and animals around you. If you have animals, if they lick you a lot, don't wear a perfume. Use an inhaler. I mean, there's so many different ways to use things that can be safe for everybody around you. So just take a minute before you take the drop and
Mhm.
think about what impact is it going to have, not just for you, but for those around you, animals and people. So that
I
would be my biggest piece of advice.
I agree. And the one thing we need to also understand is how long our olfactory system actually smells something. So if I put a perfume on in the morning, I'm not going to smell it in maybe 10 minutes, a half hour, or so on. I no
Yeah.
longer smell that, but everybody else can. And the same with diffusion. If you're diffusing, you're not going to smell it after a certain amount of time because your olfactory system is already full. So if you
Right.
cannot smell it anymore, that's a good indication to shut it off because you're
Right.
done, right?
Exactly. Very good point.
I want to make that point as well. And also, what Anna was saying before is just remember that our animals have such a strong olfactory system 10, 30 times stronger than ours.
Let's
Is
see,
that
a dog is 300 million
300?
compared to our 6 million, and a cat's is 200 million compared to our 6 million. So yeah, their sense receptors are so much more than ours.
So imagine how strong a scent is to us and how much more strong it is to them.
Yeah,
So even,
exactly.
just think about things like that before you set your diffuser off or burn the candles or what you're using to clean the house with and wash your floors with. It's just being mindful of, the toxicity that we're putting into our animals as well.
Yeah, exactly. We don't think of them as toxic, but at, at a certain level, they can be. And that's important to remember for anything that you use. I mean, whether it's an essential oil or an actual cleaning product that you purchase,
Yeah.
you can use small amounts of things and they can be safe. But when you use them for an extended period of time or a lot of them at one time, that's where your issue is going to come in. So yes, there's ways to do things safely, but in small amounts, little itty bitty amounts. You don't need your diffuser running 24/7.
No,
Small amount.
no, absolutely not. Well, thank
And
you so much. Yes.
I was just going to say something that I was listening to a podcast or something recently, and something that I think is important for all of us to kind of remember is that marketing has done a phenomenal job of
Yeah.
convincing us that we need to make things smell a certain way.
Yes.
That's all marketing
Mhm.
because if you think back probably 30 years ago, did we ever care about all of this?
No.
Did we ever worry about, you know, oh, my house smells a certain way or whatever? No, that all became marketing, listening to commercials, whether it was on TV or on the radio or whatever. It was all of a sudden somebody marketed something to us that made us go, oh, I need to make sure that it smells a certain way. So, something to think about.
It's true. And as you said earlier, dogs have a smell, cats have a smell, our houses have smells, as long as you
Yeah.
keep your house clean. I mean, like, let's
Yes.
keep it a clean smell, right? Um,
Right.
yeah, but we also
Right.
went into, the incense and the candles and all these things that we're breathing in all the time on top of, and even essential oils that are natural. Um, all
Yep.
these other products like Scentsy and so on, and it's just constant smells
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
not natural to be in
Right.
homes all the time. Well, they are natural. I guess they
Exactly.
are natural, but just not to be in an enclosed space all the time. We're being inundated with all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today. I'm grateful for you sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, and I hope that people will really take this to heart and share this video with others, especially if they have animals and even young children. Like, think about your children as well. So I'd encourage you to share this video
Yep.
with
Exactly.
anybody you think that could benefit with it on your social media. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this coming up and lots of good stuff. So thank you again. Have a beautiful day, everybody, and we will see you soon.